Good morning, all spectators through our YouTube presentations, and welcome to virtually to Päivälehden Museo, where we are actually broadcasting you YouTube presentations. And welcome to Dear spectators, welcome to our YouTube presentation. We are going to hear today. My name is Mikko Salo. I'm a person who has been for a rough in this interviewing and giving the floor to the first source, to say, in this case, the Faktisk Norwegian fact-checking service, was being the pioneer in fact-checking, at least in the Nordic countries. I would argue globally as well. We heard earlier Faktisk editor-in-chief chairman of the board Heli Solberg, explaining how the story got started. But today we have an occasion to hear from the horseman, so to say, how it's working in practice, also how it was, so to say, built from the start, from the idea that the editors-in-chief got at the moment. The idea would be in Finnish context to see what can we learn from that, because we are aiming, of course, for something impactful in our fight with misinformation and disinformation. Without further ado, I actually will present soon you Kristoffer, but let's first get to the same line by giving you a video greetings that they sent us about roughly a year ago, when the COVID was only getting kind of started, and we couldn't make to our first meeting as such. So I will give you the 5 minutes video, after which I will shortly present you to just give the floor to Kristoffer for half an hour, and then we hope that this will serve you as an inspiration for further reflections. Thank you.
Once upon a time, in a land far away to the north, 6 of the largest media outlets battled for the throne of market shares. But then, a bigger threat entered the public discourse. Trolls and fake news swept the land, dividing and conquering everyone's harmonic newsfeed. When everything seemed to be at its darkest, the 6 media rivals came together to fight the evil trolls. But that's no fairy tale here in Norway. And hi, I'm Kristoffer Egeberg. I'm the editor-in-chief in Faktisk.no in Norway. Actually, I didn't see you come in there because, you know, in these corona times, I'm stuck up here in my cabin. Whoa. Not that close, you know, in these times, you know, social distancing, at least 1 or 2 meters. Well, you know, don't worry. I'll just do like this, you know, everyone wash your hands, and then I'll finish this story. Now, imagine 6 of the largest media rivals in the country joining up to build an independent fact-checking organization, paying them so they can give it all away for free to everyone. Well, that has happened here in Norway. A group of brave editors saw the need to do something to combat the mass spread of disinformation and misinformation in the public discourse. Not because fake news is the media's responsibility, but because fighting fake news is part of our social mission. It's what journalists do. Because fact-checking is not only making sure your facts are right, it's also a very strong and very effective genre within investigative journalism. So fact-checking is what we in Faktisk actually have been doing for the last 3 years. And our name, Faktisk, translates actually into, well, actually, or factually. Isn't that cool? The editors, they decided to finance an independent fact-checking organization with enough resources so we could hire experienced journalists and researchers with enough time to explore lessons learned and the best practices from around the world. That's how we had to build, a Norwegian model step by step. Every detail is important. And in this process, we had to acknowledge that our value is not possible to measure in income and revenue. In order to succeed in our mission, we would have to give away every fact check and every story for free and hope that this will give us the reach of viral fake news. Enough reach to get to those who really needs them, to those who may not even, think of seeking us out for themselves, those who would never climb a paywall to get to real quality news. We make fact checks and we let everyone who wants to have them publish them on their own platforms. Of course, it helps to have the largest media companies on board. And I think in the beginning they thought that publishing our stories was solely doing us a favor. But then they saw the numbers, how popular these stories were for their audience, how long they stayed on the page. It became a win-win situation. With some occasional brawls and bruises, on their side anyway, when we started to fact-check them. Oh, nobody likes to be fact-checked. But that is independence. We are independent. They actually pay us for us to go and fact-check also them, and everyone else who makes viral or important claims in the public domain. So, does it work? Oh yes, it works. I mean, Norway is a small country with about 5 million people. And last month, we reached about 1.2 million unique users. 800,000 of those came from other sources. Our articles were embedded by more than 20, maybe up to 30 news medias around the country, giving us 1.3 million page views. That's twice as much as we could manage on our own. But imagine, that's almost altogether 2 million page views on 30-something fact checks and stories. Not bad for a small media startup. I mean, just the force of our fact checks on the front page of 30 news sites at once. It gives us the power to outreach fake news. Hell, sometimes it gives us the power to outreach even Facebook. It gives us the power to fight disinformation like we fight the virus, working together to find a vaccine. That's twice the amount of paid views we got on our own. Helvete, sikkert min mor. Jeg visste. Det skjer hver jævla gang.
So that's the story this far. But Kristoffer, welcome to the
Kortfilmen sponset av Kasumo.
Streaming and perhaps without further ado, you can take it from here, and then we have a couple of announcements in later. Feel free to liaise to me if needed, but other than that, I'd rather listen and learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mikko, and I hope everybody can hear me. That was almost a year ago, and a lot has happened that year. But first of all, I'm very happy to speak with you. I wish I could come in person, but still we have to think about COVID for travel, and also we have the elections in Norway on Monday. So this is the fact checkers high season for working. So anyway, I want to say congratulations also to Yle, being I heard a very, very old broadcaster, 95 years yesterday. And that must be among the earliest public broadcasters in Scandinavia, I guess. I don't think that the Norwegian NRK is a youngster compared. Anyway, as I said in the video, Faktisk is a cooperation between now 6 large media companies in Norway. It's important to emphasize that we are an independent, non-profit organization, but still we are owned by these 6 companies who basically give us about 100,000 euros in yearly contribution for us to do our work. And then we have to find other revenue other places, and I'll tell you a bit about that. But first of all, the most important thing is, what do fact checkers do? This is the first confusing thing when we started Faktisk, is that even editors and media people in Norway did not actually know what fact checking was. They were talking about, are you now outsourcing your source criticism? Are you not going to check your own stories anymore? No, this has nothing to do with fact-checking. Fact-checking is actually a journalistic genre. It is part of investigative journalism, and it's meant for publishing. It's stories, it's story writing. And what do? We fact-check actual claims. We cannot fact-check opinions. We use the classic news criteria, like we want to emphasize claims and stories that impact the Norwegian public discourse. We could have fact-checked Donald Trump or Bolsonaro or whoever, but that is not really impactful in Norway. So we try to stay local, and we have to find and always work to find kind of the combination of what's very viral and what is important, what has real life impact on people. And then we have seen and we have evolved our journalism for the last 4 years, also to take a step back to be able to make fact check stories about the big picture. What are the big trends? Who are the distributors of disinformation, of misinformation? How are the algorithms impacting our daily lives, etc.? So this is something that is really important, I think, moving forward with fact check journalism, is not only to take the concrete claims one by one, because you can do that, you can swat all the flies. But in order to bring a bigger public understanding to the problems of disinformation and misinformation, you have to take also a step back and be able to write about the big picture, which we fact checkers are really good, well suited to do. Anyway, we started as a very secret project between 2 first movers, VG and Dagbladet, the biggest daily newspapers in Norway. And this is a tip. I think you need some first movers. If you're going to wait to have everybody on board, you will never get anywhere. You have to have some brave editors who decide that let's do this, let's start this and see where it ends. And in this Norway, this was VG and Dagbladet, the biggest daily tabloids. And they dedicated 3 persons each, one investigative journalist in both newsrooms, one developer or technology, like editorial developer, and one designer. So we were 6 persons in a room, as you can see on this picture, and we called ourselves Project 3.2, which is the paragraph of source criticism in the Norwegian code, journalistic code of conduct. And we had 1 month, December 2016, in order to see how could we work together to make a fact-checking effort in Norway. Now that took us about 5 hours, I think, to figure out that, this is something we really want to do. We want to work together. And these were highly competitors. I mean, VG and Dagbladet had never really cooperated in anything, and they were the most competitive newspapers in Norway, fighting each other for since the Second World War. So this was quite unique, and that gave us also a unique feeling that we were actually doing something new, something not done before, and something important. And this is also something to think about. A project like this is for something greater than just revenue and the normal kind of news fight. And that made it easier for us to join forces and also find common ground how to make this. One really important thing was to make it independent. In Sweden, they tried to make a Faktisk.se out of a kind of a semi-Norwegian model where everyone was sitting in each other's newsroom. I think it was up to 7 Swedish news sites working together. But it was really hard for them to cooperate into one common platform when they were sitting in 7 different newsrooms with seven different editors. Making 7 different kind of choices with 7 different opinions on what is fact-checking and how should we do fact-checking. In Norway, they were so brave that they gave us the independence. As Mikko stated, they made me the editor. It could have been anyone in the team, but that gave us an independence that we could form ourselves and build step by step what Faktisk is today. And when we launched in July the 5th, 2017, just before the last general election in Norway, we were 7 people working in Faktisk. And now today we are a small media company with 13, soon to be 15 full-time employees. We have a 1.3 million euro turnover, and we have now 3, almost 4 different departments. We have Faktisk, which is the news site, Faktisk, the fact-checking site, where we also have a very small but efficient visual department working with video, explainers, streams, etc. We also have on the other side Think, which is our school project or school department with 4 dedicated teachers develop on their own site, developing teaching tools and teaching resources for public schools in Norway, or for elementary school and junior high schools in Norway. This is a project which became so popular so fast that they even got support through the national budget. And now, just after the election, we are starting building our own insight and analysis department, Insikt, which is going to support both the teaching department and Faktisk, the fact checkers, but also to support the rest of Norway with insights into trends and how disinformation works and has an impact on society. Because what we have also learned is that there is not much insight on this, at least not in Norway, where you have a lot of strong laws preventing the government to kind of do the investigations into social media streams, social media groups, etc., that we journalists can do as a part of investigative journalism to find out what's actually going on behind all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, etc. And these insights are really, really important for us to understand how disinformation, misinformation, fake news impacts the public discourse. And I think this is something that also can help us get some revenue. Also, we have small projects connected to the Public Information Act, how to make databases and make it easier for journalists to get public data and public documents through the Open Information Acts in Norway, to make a database out of all those small municipalities who does not have an online service where you can get the documents or get the lists of documents, etc., to make it more open, make it more searchable. This is also a service which we think both could be a community service, but also be a paid service for some businesses and also media partners. Anyway, so we have became pretty big with a 1.3 million euro turnover this year. Now, what is Faktisk? We are an independent non-profit organization for fact-checking the public discourse in Norway. Now, our goal is to contribute to an open and inclusive and fact-based public debate. That's basically what our journalism is about, and our media literacy teaching tool school department is about. It is to contribute to an open, inclusive, and fact-based public debate. But also the last paragraph of our kind of stated goals is maybe the most important I think, for our media partners, and why our owners are so keen on being part of this project. It is Faktisk should also be a laboratory for journalism and source verification. And it is in this part we are doing a lot of, I think, this is what I think is really exciting, why I really love to work with this project, is how we actually are working on developing new journalism and new methods and new tools for journalism, not only for fact-checking, but for all kinds of journalism, which I think a lot of the lessons learned that we have done the last 4 years would have been wonderful for me to have learned the last 20 years working in my former newspaper, Dagbladet. And one thing is to, as I said in the start, to acknowledge that fact-checking is a form of investigative journalism. How to put the genre, how to actually think about what we are doing. What are we writing, or how are we narrating the stories? What kind of journalism are we doing? And just to give you an example, how we the last 4 years have been really working extensively how we tell our stories, how we kind of build a philosophy behind our journalism, and what we do is to take how we brand ourselves. These are the most famous fact-checking signs in the world. It is PolitiFact, who has their truthometer with their kind of pants on fire, which is really liar, pants on fire. And you have Washington Post, they have the Pinocchios. When we sat down to make Faktisk, we thought that, branding our stories with these kinds of brands, which is really common for fact checkers, would be a great and tabloid way in promoting our stories, especially in social media feeds and in the competition with fake news, which is often really kind of visual in the news feed. Now, we found early on, and I'm really happy we had these discussions, we had really hard discussions, was that what's wrong with these brands? Well, we found really early on that Pinocchio is a liar. Liar, pants on fire. It's always, or a lot of these brands are saying something about people's intentions, which is really hard for us to fact check. And it's not really very objective or neutral. And it's really hard to be constructive or to ask for a constructive discussion if you point out liars. Because it could be a mistake, it could be an honest mistake. So this is kind of the first step for us. So when we launched, we wanted to have maybe a Peer Gynt scale or something really funny like these, but we ended up with something really neutral, as you see on the left side here, our first scale, which we've had for almost 4 years, green to red. Really simple. You don't need to know who Pinocchio is or whatever. It's really universal, and it's Faktisk true or Faktisk wrong. No intentions into the scale. But even this, we have figured 4 years on is not necessarily the most constructive way of building our journalists around. One thing is that it's really hard to, to be precisely, 100% wrong or 100% right, and how much is yellow? Is yellow like 50% or is yellow 25%? And blah 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 blah. So often we got discussions about our conclusions, how we concluded in our fact checks, and is this really yellow or is this really orange? And we could see that often the discussion didn't really go about the story, the facts, or what's most important in the journalistic genre. Fact check is not the answer, but it's how you find the answer. It's it's kind of a report showing the reader or the viewer how you actually can fact check yourself. But when you get all these discussions about colors, we found it really hard. So we developed kind of a new way in telling our stories. That's the right side, which we just launched our new redesign a month ago or just before the summer, where we don't use the colors anymore. We have chucked away the scale and we have evolved our journalism to Faktisk, 0.3 or 0.4. And this is how we always are working in how to tell stories, how to develop, how we write the stories, how it is a laboratory, as I said, it's a research laboratory for how to do modern storytelling. Another thing is, this is our new kind of scale. It's not a scale at all. It's just written conclusion. You have the claim and you have our conclusion, and it makes our journalism much freer. It's freer because we don't have to think if it fits into the yellow or the red or the green category. Another way is how we are using technology to develop new tools and methods for journalism. One thing is how the journalist and the technology fits together. We figured out that this is the way to do fact checking. We monitor. We use a lot of tools to monitor. You could use CrowdTangle to Facebook or other measuring tools. You have some great Finnish tools. I know how to kind of measure what is viral on social media or which viral stories are there. We have developed some tools to show which viral stories also have conflict words in it, that it's a bigger chance that there's a conflict here, maybe a factual claim that it's controversial. That would be important for us to go in and fact check, etc. But when you monitor, you also spot claims, and then you start checking claims, and then you publish and spread. But in the checking claims, you also can really decisive make kind of how to work with fact checks. We contact our sources first. This is something new for a lot of journalists, to actually go to the claimant before you have written the stories. We also always go to the source first. We fact check, we conclude, and then we let the source comment if we find a false statement or whatever. But if there's any developers watching this now, they would see that everything that is as schematic as this can also be made into data sets. So we don't really write stories. I mean, it looks like stories. It looks like a normal fact check story when you read it online on us, but on our public our platform, our CMS is actually dividing all our stories into data sets. Data sets about a claim. It's also always the central thing, the claim, the observations, the topics, it's about vaccines. We found this claim on Facebook, we found it on Twitter, we found it in the newspaper. We do the fact checking where you have all the documentation, you have the sources, and then you have the when, where, who, it was the Ministry of Health said it on the Parliament discussion, whatever. And then you have the conclusion. And all these elements in a story is fit together to one data set, which is already being used through the claim review tag system by the big tech companies like Google, like Facebook, etc. And this means that they can actually use our journalism in their and our data sets to highlight fact checks in the feed. Whenever someone searches a claim which fits the claims that we have fact checked, you don't only get a hit, but you get a hit as a fact check with the claimant, with who said it, etc., etc. As you see that Google News already uses this system, and this is a system involving, which I think would be perfect for other kinds of journalism. But we are pioneers. The fact-checking communities are actually pioneers in using this technology today, also using AI in trying to make some research, robotic research, to start kind of the job of fact-checking the claims that has been fact-checked before, etc. I'm going to show you like one thing we're going to use later today. This is something we made because no one made it before. This is actually a scraping program, scraping the under the subtitles in NRK, our public broadcaster, the Norwegian Alla, all the news service they have. This is running now. This is real time. This is the subtitles on the news program on television and on radio, scraping everything which is said in the studio. And you see the system already starts tagging what it recognizes as, for example, a person, a party, a location, into these tags. And also you can see that it bulbs what it believes might be a claim, a factual claim. This is based on recognition, on numbers, or on change, or on certain kind of words that makes the system believe that this is a claim. So we don't really need to see the debate programs on television anymore. We can go in to this system. We can see who's on, what did they talk about, what were the topics, and it has already highlighted some claims. So I can go back here, for example. This is the morning news show yesterday morning, and I can go down here and the tags will come pretty fast. I can see who's there. I want to check this claim, for example. I can go in and it automatically takes me to the exact place in the show. And this is just a simple tool which gives us the possibility to track, to sort, to store all television and radio news stories on public television, and to go back in the archive to see, did they really say that on this program? Because that is a lot of claims, is that the Prime Minister said this at this show. We can actually go back in time in a really simple searchable tool, or we can follow it as I just showed you in real time to follow the debate. Also, we have, for example, now being an election, we have the Faktisk poll system, where we scrape all the polls in all the polls in Norway for the elections. Like right here, you have the latest polls. Everyone where we have calculated the margin of error. You can sort it any way you want. We even have a nerd modus, and this is public. Anyone can use this, and they can put in the parameters they want, like the latest here, and they can go down to the whole country or to certain areas. This is Bergen in Norway, etc. They can choose the timeline, whatever, and then they could use it. They can actually embed this and use it on their news site or on their blog. A lot of local newspapers, for example, who can't afford their own pollings, can then use the national polls or the polls that other has made and publish it on to their news stories to get accurate polling. And we put in, parameters, explain how these polls work, etc. And this is a really kind of opening up transparency and also giving people public information, which is quite interesting. So that was just kind of some few tools that we have been working on as kind of a public service or as a service for other media partners who wants to use it for free. Another thing is that we try to be really proactive as fact checkers, as experts on media literacy, on experts of what is really going on, especially in social media, how are fake news impacting the public discourse. So we try to be really on the offensive, joining in on radio programs, cooperating with other medias when they need something. Our videos are posted on other Snap channels, etc. Our explainers are distributed widely, and we have also been participating as segments in both weekly radio programs and on weekly consumer programs with the fact-checking segments, etc. So we try to be out there so people don't forget about fact check, media literacy, etc. And this has worked really well because that makes us more attractive. We are being called upon. So instead of going to our competitors, which are no fact checking competitors, but other experts, they go to us. Another thing is we offer internships. This, I think, is really interesting. In the start, as I told, we were 6 people. We came from different media houses. So the first year of Faktisk, we actually more or less had journalists and workers, developers, designers who came from their respective news organizations. And they had a really good experience working together cross company. And work together on something new, developing new kind of journalism. So after making it permanent and people were employed in Faktisk and quit their old jobs, we still wanted to offer internships. So now we could actually offer journalists from cooperating medias internship. They can stay for a year. You have 2, I think, stipendiates, 1 journalist stipendiate for the Norwegian Journalist Association and 1 for the Norwegian Niche Press Association. They offer now each 4 months, 5 months internship in Faktisk, 1 in the fall and 1 in the spring, which is really interesting, where we can actually get some of the best journalists from out there. They come to us, they work for us in 4 or 5 months. They learn quality journalism, they learn fact-checking, they learn investigative journalism, they learn how to work with technology, and they are part of the team. And these stipendiates, they pay for their substitute in their respective workplace. So it's a win-win situation, both from the workplace, because they get their journalist gets to do something else for a period, and they come back full of inspiration. And also we win on this because we meet people from we get kind of resources, but also we get inspiration and we get to spread our word. These people go back to their newsroom and they use fact-checking journalism and the methodology that we have developed in their respective news organizations, and which I would claim then rising the standards of news and accuracy in their reporting. We offer workshops, conferences. We have a lot of courses. I mentioned the educational platform for teachers, libraries and schools, which Tank, the school project, has. And we also offer seminars and courses for private organizations and even government institutions, because our insights, what we know about the spreading of disinformation and fake news, is really, really interesting for a lot of organizations. And we have had a lot of courses for researchers, how to do better research, how to use the methods that we use in their work as researchers, etc. And we are always open for expanding our partnerships with other medias and cooperating companies. Of course, my visionary, now we have 6 owners. That gives us a foundation, money-wise, resources, but also a foundation in how to kind of work together with other newsrooms in corporations. I would really wish for more owners, but obviously Norway is a small country, so 6 might be the limit. But there are still a lot of news organizations in Norway that could be potential partners or owners and part of this kind of laboratory. And also, we are emphasizing like this today to build an international network. This is not something we do on our own. We are part of the International Fact-Checking Network, IFCN, which Faktabaari is associated with and has a strong relationship with from Finland. It's the only Finnish organization which has a strong relationship, and we are the only members of IFCN in Norway. It's a small fact-checking community in the Nordic countries, and we need to stay together. So we have quite a lot of dialogue with Faktabaari, with Checkte in Denmark, with Kildkritikbyrån in Sweden, because this is a different network from the traditional investigative journalism network. And this is also quite interesting because this is a network that our media partners get to tap into, because we have, because a lot of fact-checking organizations is like Faktabaari, maybe, I think, is not kind of from the journalistic community, but maybe from an academic community. You have a whole world of really, really exciting project with technology, which is far beyond what I've seen in newsrooms before, which traditional journalistic companies has not had kind of in their network, but that we have because the IFCN is kind of born out of a different community. Although you still have Reuters, AP, Washington Post, and all these traditional medias in there, it's a different community. And this is really, really exciting, merging these communities together. And we have a lot of dialogue with the big technology companies like Facebook, like Google, and we are also participating with Faktabaari and the University of Helsinki in the Nordis project, which I guess Mikko is going to talk more about, which is part of the EDMO, the EU network. So networking is also an important part of what we do. I'm going to round this up. The really, really important thing is building trust. Media literacy is, in my mind, maybe the vaccine against the infodemic, to use a word that fits today. And it's really important for us to emphasize that building a school project on the side of an editorial project like Faktisk.no has been really important and given us a lot of new energy. The school project Tank is also a way to support fact-checking because it's actually easier to get funds for media literacy projects, this being for children or for seniors, which is a real problem in Nordic countries, is that the seniors are probably the most spreaders of fake news. Now, how to meet these people and find them and to teach them media literacy. Now, for being a media company, I think this is so important also for all the other media companies. One of the struggling things being an editor and being a journalist is how to get the younger generation to actually pay for news, pay for quality news, how to make them familiar with quality news and not only on blogs on TikTok or whatever, how to get new readers, and also how to meet seniors in their community when you know that they are not as digital savvy as our generation is. We are losing the seniors. They do not trust us anymore. They do not find us anymore, maybe because our offices are not in every city anymore, but it's kind of larger corporations, etc. Now, building media literacy programs like this, I think, is a very strong and very important way to reach new readers and to keep the old readers and keep them interested in quality news, probably building a foundation for a willingness to pay for quality news in the future, which is one of our big kind of challenges. So this is also something I think that Faktisk and our school project Tank will be really important for our partners to cooperate, because then we could move out to a rural community in Norway. We could go to Trondheim and we would automatically have 2 or 3 local newspapers to partner with to have a media literacy program there, which would keep their community actually aware that they actually have 2 or 3 quality newspapers in their area, so they don't have to go to internet or go to Facebook or go to some dodgy Facebook group to get their news. They could actually get real news from real newspapers, from real reporters living in their community, which I think is a challenge. So anyway, just to show our impact, this is the Norwegian Medietilsynet, which is the Norwegian media authority. I'm almost a bit embarrassed because I logged onto their site yesterday. This is the front page of the Norwegian media authority, and I saw that almost, I think 6 out of 9 posts on their first page is actually projects that we are cooperating on. The first one is a campaign they're having now during the election, how to stop, think, and fact check, which is a campaign they have with also local newspapers. I think they're cooperating with Facebook, and they have cooperated with us, where we have made kind of the fake news quiz on this for them. Also, the Norwegian Media Pod, which they have, I'm in this episode, this very episode, I'm interviewed about fake news during the election. You have this as a new resource for seniors, new teaching tools for seniors, which we have helped develop for them. And this is a national seminar for teaching resources for the election, which we actually held. It was organized by Tank, our school project. This is a resource they have on false news and source criticism for school children, which we have made. And this is a documentary and a teaching resource about deepfakes, which we made for them in September last year. So we really try to cooperate and spread the word everywhere we are. So fact-checking is so much more and gives us so much more opportunity to reach out than just a traditional newsroom. So this was kind of the not very short version. I think I overstepped my time a lot, but I hope you could hear me and that you understood me. Just contact Faktisk.no if you have any questions or any comments to this. But this is basically a short story about us. And we hope a lot of people were kind of anticipating our fast death back in 2017 when we were announced that this was, stupid, that fake news is not a problem in Scandinavia, that our kind of journalism had nothing to do in the Norwegian context. But now, 4 years in, we are now grown. We are double in number of people. We have almost tripled in our turnover, and we have a lot of exciting projects going on, which I hope will lift our journalism further in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristoffer, a lot. That was very impressive, and I believe very much put us in the practice of your work, and impressive work, I have to say. There was a lot of new to me as well, and I hope also to the audience. I won't be repeating. You will have the recording on that one. Just probably some keywords: independence, academic, laboratory, distinction between mis and disinformation, method, literacy part, but most of all the cooperation and also for some actors to need to kind of take the ball because and of course your offer to help also in the future. There would have been so many interesting things on Norwegian elections and all that, but we unfortunately don't have time for that one here. Let's keep following Faktisk and let's start building in Finland our fact-checking capabilities, and we trust you on your cooperation. And the next time you will have a chance to hear more on this and have both need to see Kristoffer and I on screen is the next Wednesday on International Democracy Day. We are going to have a broadcasting the launch opening of the Nordis network that Kristoffer referred a lot, and I hope this can spark further the cooperation. Please check out the website. The recording will be available, I believe, more or less immediately after that. Thank you very much for following us, and stay tuned to be followed.